tell us kind of work backwards for us. Tell us where you're at now, what you're doing, introduce yourself, and then kind of go back through a summary of where you've been and why you're here today.
Okay, so my name is Trish Brodina. I'm the oldie of the two of us. Jeremiah program was not in existence when I came up through college. And so my story is now I kind of have a non-traditional, I guess, point where I'm at now. In 2018, I left what I call the traditional workforce. Being very honest, I have a spouse, and so I had the flexibility and freedom to do that. That year, my mother's health deteriorated enough that I felt it was important to stop working to take care of her, which I did that for 2 years straight, kind of. During that time, also, when my father passed away, he had left me my childhood home. I ended up restoring that home, and so I have kind of turned into a house flipper with my husband. So that's what I've been doing now for the last 6 years. My mother is currently living with me still, and so it allows me the flexibility, I guess, to not be in the traditional workspace, to be able to care for my mom. I'm a grandma now, which I absolutely love, so it allows me the flexibility to travel to get to see my 2 grandkids. Prior to that, again, what I'm going to just refer to as the traditional workspace, I had the experience to work with Andrea at Concordia. I kind of ended my career working in like director of operations type capacity jobs, but before that I had come from banking. Before that I was a CPA, so I came out of college in 1993 and then pursued my CPA. So my degree is actually a Bachelor of Accountancy. I graduated from UND. My daughter was born in what would have been my sophomore year. I got pregnant my freshman year. Never questioned if I would go back to college. It was just, am I going to go back second semester of sophomore year when she would have only been 6 weeks old, or am I going to go back when she's a little bit older? And so I went to UND. I started out in accounting, took, I guess, a gap year to have a baby, and then went back to college when she was 9 months old. And I was still able to graduate in 4 years. I feel extremely fortunate that, and I've got a pretty outgoing personality, so I kind of threw myself into everything related to my program. So all of my professors knew me by name. They knew my daughter by name. I didn't have a lot of mentoring needs, but if I ever had after hours questions or things where I had to talk to a professor on kind of outside of the classroom, they had candy waiting for her. So I was very fortunate, especially in that time before great programs like Jeremiah program, where I had so many people rooting for me. I had a great family. I had great professors, and so that's kind of my journey. Graduated high school in 1988. Instead of 4 years, it was really 5 years. And then moved to Fargo, and yeah, I've been working backwards. Here we are now. So, and I'm going to pass it to her because she's got a really interesting story.
Well, hello everybody. Good evening. How is everyone doing tonight? Good. Okay. Well, my name is Melissa Bascom. I am 35 years old. I am a single mom of 2 girls, Adia and Amelia, my double A's. I am currently an administrative assistant at Catholic Charities, also doing support with HR. I'm currently in school with Southern New Hampshire, taking business management with a concentration in HR. Maintaining a 4.0 GPA, so yes, congrats to me. I am currently 2025-2026 JP cohort for the fellowship program, and also launching my vending machine business called The Pocket Store, where convenience meets reality. So be on the lookout for that in Fargo-Moorhead. I am a graduate of the JP program in December 2023 with with a liberal arts degree. Like I stated before, I have 2 girls. I'm originally from New York, the inner cities. Me and my eldest daughter came here to Fargo, Mother's Day 2019 actually, so it's been about 6 years I think. We were unfortunately living in a shelter, and I just knew that New York was not the place to raise her and for her to grow. And I said, you know what, we have to take a chance and step out. There was a friend at the time who moved to Fargo, and she said, I think you just need to come to North Dakota. And I said, absolutely not, because the snow was touching her knees. And I said, no, I'm not gonna deal with that. I'm gonna tough it out here in New York. And then I told myself, and I said, you know what, Melissa, you know New York, you know what it has, and give somewhere else a chance. And if it doesn't work out, you can always go back. And as you can see, I have not left. And I'm a North Dakotian. I tell everyone, no, New York is just a wonderful place to visit. So yeah, that is my story.
It's so impressive, both of you. So many things you've accomplished. So when you, we're just going to dive a little deeper into your experiences as, very different experiences as single parents, but also very similar in a lot of ways. Full-time parents, full-time students, having different kinds of support networks around you, and that kind of thing. So what did childcare look like for you while you were in school? And then also, as you became a professional, what did it look like or does it look like for you now?
So for me, again, it's probably much different now. The cost for sure, I'm alarmed sometimes now. And my daughter is Melissa's age, so when she tells me what she pays for childcare, it's astronomical. When I was in college, I received benefits to help me get through college, and so at that time I was able to get daycare assistance. I had an experience where my very first daycare, I remember leaving there crying on the second day. It was a private home and it wasn't a great situation. And second daycare was much better. It was right off of campus, and so I was very fortunate. We still talk about Ms. Obregon. And so my daughter, my sophomore through my senior year then, so for 3 years, she would have gone to an in-home daycare. So I did that through graduation in '93, and then I was fortunate. I had 2 internships offered to me during college. One was in Colorado, one was in Fargo. I pursued Colorado, sight unseen. Went out there, found a place. My mom brought my daughter 2 weeks later. Found daycare in that 2 weeks. Also private home. Fortunate situation there. Came back to Fargo. Took the full-time job with the first internship that had been offered to me but that I didn't pursue. And I can still remember to this day, and that would have been $93, $94. Daycare was $75 a week. So $300, in essence, $300 a month, and it's a mortgage payment now. Happy times, I can still remember it. It was a mom and daughter that ran it. So that probably took her through first, second grade, and then as she started getting a little older, I remember doing like latchkey programs and things like that after school, and then trying to think of how old she would have been, like where then you start to say like, okay, you can maybe stay home a little bit after school and stuff like that. But yeah, I had fortunate situations. Just the price is just astronomical now.
Same question to me? Yes. Okay. Well, like I stated before, I came here to Fargo, North Dakota without anything. No job. I didn't know how to drive, so no car, no apartment, nothing. I just literally stepped out on faith. So my situation with trying to have housing and childcare and go to school at first was very, very difficult because I'm now in a culture shock because people in New York are very, if you've been there, are very little rude. They're not the nicest all the time, and Fargo, they're very embracing, so that was number one. And just forming that community. I didn't get that help really with childcare until joining JP, which was told to me from another great organization out here from Down Home. The co-founder, Janessa, wrote me and said, hey, I think you'll just be wonderful for this program. Have you ever thought about going back to school? And I said, you know, I did start when I was in New York, but I never finished because I thought I was going to be in Hollywood. So I was doing music, I was singing, I was acting, so I was taking a different route. So I said, you know what, I think it is time to go back. And I found JP, like I said, through Down Home. And having childcare for my eldest daughter, who I just had at the time, was extremely helpful. And just trying to, you know, just build that community and gain friendships. So that was really hard for me. Eventually, I did find a job where I was able to work from home, but I still took her to JP because I remember the first day Amy met Adia, she goes, oh, she is such a light. And she really is, like, she will light up this entire room 10 times. Me. And yeah, so that was my journey with trying to do childcare and be a full-time employee.
And what about housing? What did housing look like for you in school?
So are we just talking school or? Okay. So housing in similar for school. My freshman year, before I had a child, I lived in dorms, and then upon having my daughter, I moved home for about 2 months to have my daughter, and then when she was 6 weeks old, I moved back to campus to find low-income housing, knowing that I was going to start that fall. So I lived in low-income housing. Trying to think, yeah, for 3 years I lived in low-income housing. The shock for me, honestly, and this is going to speak to the mission of the shock for me graduating college. When I graduated college, I fought tooth and nail to get through college with a very high GPA so I could get a good job, knowing her dad was in the picture. My first job out of college, and I can still remember it, paid in a very low 20,000s. That's when the reality of finances hit you. Because then, even though childcare was only $75 a week, now I had a full rent payment because I had rent assistance during college. I still had daycare, I had rent assistance, I had a car payment. My student loans were coming due, and so I can remember crying that first year because the reality is it's tough, and the financial part of it, even when you pursue a very viable degree that has financial security, it's hard. And so housing, I moved into a regular apartment, and I can still remember the rent of my regular apartment. So this would have been 1993, $495 a month. And now apartments, same thing. It's probably $1,500, $2,000 for a month. So yeah, that's why I think that it's this hard cycle sometimes for people that maybe are in a situation where they are receiving benefits, because sometimes you almost feel stuck, like it puts you in a better, you know it's not the right answer for long term, but it's hard when you step into the point where you don't want to receive the benefits and you're truly independent, because I was nowhere close to poverty level, and it's tricky.
Yeah. Did you feel safe, or your neighbors, like, what was the house like?
In college?
In your loan?
In the low-income housing, yeah. So that's a funny story. So it was low-income housing, and it wasn't just specific to students. So very colorful story. Like, I didn't necessarily feel safe. I had actually a very strange, I don't know if I told you this, or if you just going to ask. I had a neighbor who was living with a person who I didn't know at the time that had a criminal background. And at the time, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a young celebrity in Hollywood that it was when stalking became a thing. Like someone had killed a person. I actually had a stalking thing and had to get police involved, and found out it was my neighbor's boyfriend. And at the time, his punishment was they basically just told him to go back to his home state. So there was no jail time served. So yeah, it was colorful, and it isn't necessarily safe, but that's another thing, I guess, with in the low-income housing, I paid 30% of my monthly income And at the time, also had to swallow a lot of tears because I received, at that time it was called AFPC, Assistance for Families with Dependent Children. I don't know if that still is. So I paid anywhere from I think $98 a month to $112 a month to take 30% of, so even though you're only getting $400 a month to live on, 30% of it goes to rent. And so all of my neighbors, and you know, I was maybe one of the few in school, but all of my neighbors are in that situation as well, and it maybe brings some color to individuals that, yeah, just add extra flavor to the story.
I like that. Yeah. I like that. With me, same question. I would say, so my story actually started backwards 2 years. I never lived on dorm. I would have loved that experience, but my experience, I was always living on my own with my eldest daughter. Before actually joining Jeremiah, I had gotten my own little townhome through public housing, which was similar, paying the 30%. So I was considered at first an independent off-campus mom through Jeremiah. Then when I conceived my second daughter, I said, you know what, we gotta save. So the price is gonna go up. So that's when I decided to move into the Jeremiah housing. So I have both experience. Living on campus, being around the girls, I would consider that would be like a dorm because it's all the girls and we're kind of sharing and we're bonding. I became very close to one of the girls. We're always each other best friends. So my housing situation, I would say that I had that, especially growing up, very frugal parents. Since they came from the Caribbean. So it was everything, we didn't know materialistic about buying the Nikes and the name brands. So I think I always had practice of how to manage and going to food banks if we needed additional food. Although I didn't get, the only thing I was able to receive was the child care assistance, thank goodness. But yeah, just my experience was much different. I do prefer to be independent, and especially since that's how I started. In comparison with the neighborhoods, I would compare it to New York. I would say it's a lot more safer. A lot more safer. So I had a pretty good experience living independently with my eldest daughter. So yeah.
And when we talk about, I wish I should have thought to put this up on the slide. We have a fantastic picture of Melissa with one of the other moms picking up like 12 children from our child development center after daycare one day. So our sisterhood, when we talk about the Jeremiah program sisterhood, that is like the sisterhood in one picture. But so yeah, that's wonderful. You had such a good experience here. So speaking of that sisterhood, so we've talked about. If you haven't, again, heard of our 5 pillars, we're kind of talking about our 5 pillars of JP here. So we have safe and affordable housing. We have high quality pre-K childcare, and this amazing supportive community of other moms, all trying to just help these amazing moms achieve their goals and graduate from school. So you've talked a lot about this, but what did that supportive community look like for you when you were, especially in college? And I mean, you both obviously knew you wanted to go to college. When did you know you wanted to go to college? How did you know you were going to continue in college? Who was that village for you?
So for me, I'm a firstborn, which I think there's something to the firstborn. So I always kind of had that in me. From the time I was a little girl, I remember talking about I'm in college. And I had a dad in particular who kind of always told me you can do whatever you set your mind to. And I was fortunate. I believed him, and I believe that every parent should tell a child that. I really do. I don't think that it's our job to make life as easy as possible for them, but I really think it's our job to tell them whatever you want to do, you can do if you believe it. And so my village, first and foremost, was my parents. I had very active parents. As I said, when I had my daughter, I moved home for about 2 months to have her, and my mom was in the delivery. Her dad wasn't in, my daughter's father wasn't involved. We broke up when I was pregnant. So my mom was in the delivery room, and my dad paced out. He told me jokes in the delivery room until he was asked to leave. that day is one of, I might even get teary, that's one of the best memories I have of my father and my daughter from the time she was a little girl until now, 35 years old. That's one of the favorite stories she loves to hear about my dad. Because it was basically telling me bad jokes all day and waving food in front of my face that he knew I couldn't eat in labor. But parents first and foremost. And then for me, I talked to Andre about this. I kind of had to create my own village. I mean, I was lucky that I had friends, but I was the only one in my program, my accounting program at UND for certain that was a single parent, and I was so involved in that campus. I don't remember meeting another single parent. So there weren't other people kind of going through the same stage of life, so you just have to count on friends, knowing they're good friends and they love you and they love your child, but they're maybe not in the same stage of life. You count on professors. You kind of just create whatever it is you need at the time to help get you through, whether it's finding, the right daycare provider, the professors. First and foremost, I know it's not always the case, and I'm very fortunate, but for me, for sure, it was a mom and dad who never questioned that I would go back to college and always told me I could, and was always there. They lived about an hour out of Grand Forks, and so they weren't necessarily close, but if they knew I had a big test coming up, or if I wanted to go, the big accounting firms were in Minneapolis at the time, so when I wanted to start touring for interviews and I needed a weekend, they were definitely the ones that I turned to say, can you take Caitlin for a weekend or what have you, so.
Yeah. All right, same question, right? Okay, so my village, growing up, like I stated, my parents are Caribbean. They're from Guyana, South America. My mom holds a degree in teaching in her country, and my brother also has graduated in computer engineering here in America. So education has always been pushed to me since a child. I just decided to be stubborn one time and said, let me go be in Hollywood. And obviously decided to, so education was always pushed to me. My mom would always tell me that having my degree is going to open many doors for me. So don't you forget that piece of paper, So that has always been my village. And although I decided to move halfway across the country away from them, I had to create my village. Meeting people out here, especially joining Jeremiah, like Tori and Tara and JoJo. I know JoJo's not here, but those are just like some of the girls, like Cellar, just connecting with them, and also like finding that friendships. I know sometimes, like you said, that can be hard because people do have their own lives. So just relying on like daycare providers and certain friends and moms that you can make friends with. And then it was a little bit more easier for me, I guess, to say, because now I have someone to relate. If you could talk to every one of those ladies in the Jeremiah program, you would see how similar our stories are, like the way it connects. And so having that support of knowing, like, okay, you went through the same thing, like, well, how did you navigate it? I know there's been times when Tori's like, girl, I'm just like, how do I get little mama to do this? And I'm like, okay, well, try this. Like just having that support and being able to lean on one another. So that's how I was able to build my village out here, although being from my family. And I still connect with them on the phone. Like even just the other day, my mom called me. She's like, are you doing your homework? And I'm like, okay, Mom, we're taking a break today. Like I was like, I promise you, assignments is not due until Thursday. I can take a break. So yeah, I still have, she's still on me, although she's miles away. She's still a mom. yeah, she is.
Can you talk a little bit more about the time with your kids when you were in school too? Obviously, balancing so many things. Both of you are very high achievers, doing really well in school, but what did that quality time look like with your kids when you were in school?
So that's a tricky one because looking back, probably the biggest thing, so something's got to give, right? There's a finite amount of time in a day and you're one person. Quality time and quantity time, it's limited. Going through college, honestly, one of the most meaningful periods in my life to this day. And I think my daughter would agree. Her memories and looking, I don't know sometimes if she's got true memories or if she looks at photos, but for me, what I try to think of my day as is I would look at my, each day, Monday through Friday, I would look at it almost like a job. So from 8 to 5, I tried to load up my classes earlier in the day, and then I would study until close to 5, go pick her up from daycare. And then if I had a big test or a presentation or something coming up, because I'm more of a morning person, I remember many nights getting up at like 2 or 3 in the morning while she was still sleeping, and then preparing for that. And that's kind of how I did it. That doesn't work for anybody. So quality time and quantity, and even quantity of time, definitely can be tricky, because even when you're in their presence, you know, you're thinking about the next homework assignment or the next test or the next presentation. One of my favorite pictures of my daughter ever. She was 1.5 years old, and I had a round kitchen table in student housing, and sat there doing homework every night. And I think it was a good example that she saw. She would pull out a coloring book that had colored crayons and her favorite little Kool-Aid hat on, and she would do her homework at me. So that was kind of our nightly routine from the time she was 1.5 in that picture. So that was kind of our routine. So yeah, there's give and take to anything, and unfortunately, I do think for a lot of single moms, you can speak to your experience, but something's gotta give, and unfortunately, a lot of times, time is what has to give.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. Well, in my household, I would say me and Nadia, when it was just her and I, we started a tradition like every Friday was pizza night. So we would just order pizza, or we would get like a Walmart pizza, and we would watch like either movies or whatever cartoon. Now that we have Amelia, Amelia is in love with Dora. So I mean, just even being present with her, like sometimes I feel like they get me to like do things, because Amelia would like come on the bed and she'll tap me, and I'll go, okay, we gotta get up. Okay, I got it. And we get up, and she walks me into the room. She holds my hand, and she just wants me to be there while she watches her Dora. And then she'll run out like 2 seconds later, and I'm like, okay, we're doing this now. So, just being there, and sometimes like even just listening to music, like I said, having that Caribbean roots, so listening to soca and calypso, and just dancing in the house with them and just singing, like that's fun for them, because mommy gets to be silly and they get to see that's my Hollywood in the house. So that's my superstardom. So I get to sing with them and, just dance with them. So it's just like, the little moments, just doing those little tiny things with them, that's how I'm able to have that presence with them. And you asked also about how the work-life balance is. Was that also a question?
Or when you were at JP, what it looked like, and then
yeah, same thing. Since I was pregnant with Amelia, me and Nadia we would cook together. So like she always loved coming in the kitchen, like, can I help you, mommy? Can I help you? So I'm like, you know what? Yes, let's help mommy. Let's speed this up. So having her help me cook is our favorite activity. And then now, like I said, now that we have Amelia, she's joined in on the tradition of the Friday night pizza night, because I'm like, mommy's not cooking. Mommy needs a break.
And did Adia do summer enrichment? I can't remember. Did we ever have summer enrichment when she was with us?
I believe so.
I don't remember with that.
I believe so. I know that she did some like swimming classes with you guys. Oh yes, being a part of the JP program, and I think that this is a wonderful addition to that program. The children during the summertime are able to take like extracurricular activities, and I do not know how to swim, and I think that is such a wonderful life skill that everyone needs to have. And because of JP, I was able to put her into swimming classes both years. So that was amazing. And I was like, that's so good. Like, get her into swimming. And I'm like, okay, Ma, I know. So, she was able to do that. And Adia loves to draw, and she loves art. So she was able to go to, Clay Your Way. She was able to do that and do so many little different projects. So I'm very grateful, because not having that additional fun, but knowing that she's able to take part in these different programs, that's absolutely wonderful. That's also another great benefit with JP.
Thank sharing that. So what would you say, again, you're both such resilient, driven women, very different villages kind of around you, but if you had to say two factors that were most influential in helping you be successful through your whole educational journey to where you are today, what would you say that would be?
So for me, Andrea and I actually talked about this a little bit before coming on. Like, this is just for me. For me, I feel fortunate because I've always thought of myself as scrappy. And so when my dad told me I could do something, I believed him, and so I never questioned that I couldn't do anything. And even when I found out I was pregnant, and some people did that, I literally had one of my friend's mom tell me, you just ruined your life. It never occurred to me that like maybe it'll be a little harder, but it's gonna go. So I think part of it is something that's within everybody. I really do believe that. And how the JP program I think can help is for those people that whether there's real barriers or perceived barriers that don't have confidence or scrappiness or resilience or tenacity, whatever adjective you want to ascribe to it, to help that. I think it puts people at an advantage and statistically helps them, pursue an education, when they're single parents. And then secondly, I think building a village or a tribe, and however that form looks, because you are only one person and you're human and there's a finite amount of time in a day. And so to building a village around you that loves you and supports you and loves your child or children and supports them, I think, for me, that's how I see my journey and what I see as very valuable to kind of helping me just keep on keeping on.
I would definitely say for me, number one will be my mindset, having that resilience and that strength, especially coming from New York and being in the shelter. Just making sure that I just keep pushing. I remember, so sorry about that. I remember when I graduated, even with my associates, Miss Leticia turned and looked at me and she said, "Don't you give up." I don't know if she remembers, but she told me, she said, "Don't you give up." And I think she's watched my strength along with Andrea and Amy and Megan over there, have all watched my strength and hearing my story. The second will definitely be my daughter, especially my eldest daughter. She has a physical disability called amniotic band syndrome. And the way I best describe that to people is inside of the sac, there's threads, and it wrapped around her fingers and her feet, and it has cut off certain fingers and her toes. And I don't want her to have any excuse, especially being a woman of color and now having a disability. I don't want her to turn around and say, "Well, I can't," because I'm going to go, "Well, I did." Mommy did, mommy pushed, and mommy was by herself sometimes, and sometimes mommy didn't have mommy and daddy behind her, especially moving so far away. So I don't want her to have an excuse and for her to feel like, okay, I can give up. I want her to look at me and be like, "Well, mommy took us from New York, mommy took us from the shelter, mommy had my sister, mommy did this." Like even just the other day, she said, "Well, what are we going to do today?" And I said, "Well, mommy's going to go home and do homework." And she said, "I thought you were finished with school." And I said, "Well, I'm going back." I was like, this is the second degree mommy's going for, and I love that. And I want her to know, like, my mom kept pushing, my mom kept going. So I don't have an excuse. I want her to say, I can't quit. I can't quit because my mom did it.
So, highlighting all this, you both accomplished such amazing things. We could stay here and talk all night, but highlighting some of these big obstacles that you've both overcome, knowing again the mission at JP really is to eliminate as many of these barriers for our moms in our program as we can. That's why we start with empowerment and leadership, right? For some of the moms who aren't as fortunate to have that mindset behind them, they can do it. They don't have to choose between themselves and their kids. We know that they are capable, they're good parents, they're great moms, great students. So Keeping in mind all of these things that we've talked about, if you could share why, I mean, now as a supporter of Jeremiah program, not having gone through the program, giving back to Jeremiah program, why do you choose to support Jeremiah program? Why do you feel it's important?
For me, honestly, it's about the personal experience. And so whatever can empower, especially a single parent, and help lift them up. And I feel like with organizations like the Jeremiah program, I mean, just all kinds of things that are good that help propel that single mom on her way. So I had a good experience, but I feel like anything that can make it better or break down some of those, like say, real or perceived barriers, like I'm all for it. I'm really fortunate because I have a daughter that's now Melissa's age, and she became, from experiencing me as a single parent and her as a daughter of a single parent for so many years, she became very involved with things like Big Brothers Big Sisters program. She became she pursued, every state's a little bit different, but she became an ad litem to kind of advocate for children kind of in the foster system. And so it's fun now to talk to her as an adult and ask her, here's how I viewed our experience, but how do you view your experience? And then just seeing her, I think, doing the same thing, like trying to empower, in this case, I guess it's children that she's been really focusing on, and that speaks to your mission as well. It just, I think it's become more and more important. I have a personal connection to Andrea, and I know Leticia personally. And so just as I've gotten older, I think it's just become more and more important, I guess, in particular to just help lift up single moms in particular, because it is a very low percentage of single moms that still graduate from college. I think it's less than 10%, 9%. Okay, yeah. And so just knowing that programs like this can help change that demographic and push it into double digits and keep it growing, I'm all for anything that empowers women, especially single moms.
Well, I do just want to double back to the question before this one. I know you also asked, like, what was my why and my strength. I do want to, she probably be like, oh my gosh, stop flattering me, my mom. Because, like I said, coming from a different country and watching her be a wife, a mother, a student, and a full-time employee, I love sharing this story that the same year I graduated high school, my mom graduated college with her bachelor's degree. So that's 2 degrees. So you understand the pressure that is on me. I have to now get 3 to be in competition with this woman, just so I can be at the standard. So that is also one of my biggest why, because she didn't have an excuse. She, like I said, she was a wife, a mom, an employee, and a mother. She did it all, and she's so amazing. So she is my standard. But to go back to why JP programs like JP are so essential to us and important is because you not only support, you guys really do live up to your mission. It is changing 2 generations at a time. Because it is not only about us as the mothers, but also the children. Because once the mom is doing great and she's succeeding in life, so can the children. And I feel like I've never been judged to share my story, no matter how harsh it was. Because some people might say, oh, she came from New York, and they might have a certain way that they want to look at me, especially hearing, oh, she's lived in a shelter. And I never once ever felt that from Kavita, Cassie, Miss Leticia, Andrea, Megan, and Amy. When I tell you that these people they just don't only support you academically, they support my professional goals. If I can say, hey guys, I'm going on an interview, I need you guys to be my reference. They're like, here, take the business card, do it. When Miss Leticia saw me perform, that was her first time ever seeing me perform at one of the events here, and she said, Melissa, you can sing? And I said, no, I told you I'm too hard. And she's like, okay, so I'm gonna now connect you to resources that you can, perform. Amy, Andrea, hey, Melissa, you love public speaking. They just don't support academic. It's not just only academic. Even supporting Tara and Tori with their business. Like, they just don't focus on one thing, and they're also now starting legacy programs for the children, so the children now have an opportunity to shine. So they really do live up to their mission of changing 2 generations at a time. And like I said, just feeling so welcome and being able to share my story and never once feeling judged, and being able to sit down with them, every last one of them individually, and listen, have them hear my story and go, okay, how are we going to help Melissa? So organizations like this are so important because, like I said, they're changing 2 generations at a time. They're building legacy, and then to have that community, like you stated before, you were unable to have that while going to college. And I would say like the time difference too, because maybe in your generation it was more of a shame to be a single parent. You know, it was something to be hidden, and now it's more embraced. And we see it all the time, and it's like, okay, instead of shaming these women, how can we help them? So we do need more organizations like JP, and the reason why they need to exist.
I really don't need to say anything else. Think about it. I couldn't have said it better.